Of course, Moral Mondays were back this week. We had county commissioners in Raleigh doing their advocacy work, as well as groups like Equality NC in Raleigh coaching up the advocates so they can better work with the legislature. Representative Chris Sgro, you're as unique a person in this because you're a new legislator who came from the world of advocacy. How does it work? Because it seems that you have a group come to Raleigh, and to one, they're heroes, and to the other side, they're just bullies and just here to stir the pot.
Right. Well, when we ask people to come to Raleigh, to this building, to talk to their legislators, when I spoke as a member of the General Assembly to that group the other day, I said, talk to these folks as your neighbors, because they are your neighbors, and carry yourself as a subject matter expert, because you as LGBT community members and our allies are subject matter experts. So if you couch it like that and you take some of the adversarial nature out of the relationship, and you just say, this is the guy or the woman who lives next door to you, and you have a story to tell, and they need to hear your story, personalize the policy piece. That's why advocacy is important, and that's why it can't just be me, or it can't be just Dr. Barber. It needs to be constituents who are actually affected by these issues talking to their legislators about why they're concerned about them.
And I've seen conservative groups hold counter rallies where each side of the building has a different vibe.
Sure.
In the advocacy world, though, it seems difficult to personalize that mission because we read in the paper protests, arrests, 5,000 people here, 15 there. It does seem antagonistic. Am I wrong about that? How does the public view it?
Well, I think that there are both sides of that coin are necessary. It's important to have public outcry over things that deserve public outcry, like, in my opinion, House Bill 2 or minimum wage restriction. It's also important to be able to go in and have conversations with the human face of issues and the human people who are legislators who are interested in hearing from their constituents. So both are important. There is kind of a loud piece that is protests and press conferences and making sure that your point of view is carried in the media. And then there's also the important piece of making sure that your members and people who are affected by everyday policy are actually having conversations. And so they look very different, but it's not all adversarial.
What effect do these advocacy events, whether they're conservative or liberal groups,
Sure.
What effect do they have to the legislators working inside this building? Do they tune out? Are they tuned out? Are they tuned in? Or does no one say how influential they really are?
Well, I'm going to give legislators on both sides of the aisle some credit here and say, one, we're an all-volunteer legislature, so we all have day jobs. We're all trying to stay well-informed on a host of issues. But when people who are actually affected by an issue, it doesn't have to be LGBT rights. It could be healthcare access or rural infrastructure. When the people who actually live in rural areas or want to talk to you about healthcare access come, you're inclined to sit down and listen. So I do think that those conversations break through. I do absolutely think that legislators and our staff members listen when members of the public come, and that's how it should be. I mean, we want to be responsive to our constituents. We want to take principled stands, but they should also be based in the needs of our constituents.
How easy is it to jump the gun on this proverbially, where you have an advocacy group come in and you end up where they're slamming the door in their faces, or they're dying in, or they're getting arrested?
Right.
Everything's a strategy. How do you know how far to take it?
Right. So I know that, like the NAACP hosts Moral Mondays, and they have a lot of direct action that's a part of that, and Equality North Carolina and other LGBT organizations are part of the Moral Monday movement. I think that, again, you really do need to make sure that the media is paying attention, that North Carolina is paying attention to why some of the policies that are coming out of this building are so bad. And at the same time, again, the approach where we want to make sure that our members and constituents are actually listened to by these legislators. And what makes a productive conversation is when you're willing to sit down with a legislator who may not agree with you and not just shout at them. So that's important too.
Is it easy to get mad when you're on the other side as an advocate and they just don't seem to listen, or you just can't muster enough votes to repeal a piece of legislation or a policy? It's got to be frustrating. How do you contain it, and how do you keep it from becoming something that could be destructive to your effort?
Right. Well, I mean, I view as both a legislator and as a person who's had conversations with legislators as their constituents or as somebody that's affected by that issue, that you really do need to sit down and assume that that person is willing to hear what you say and understand that they may not be on the same page as you, that they may not they may not agree with you going into that meeting, but that people are persuadable, and they're persuadable by stories. They're not persuadable by talking points. So going in and being willing to listen on both sides, I think, is crucial to getting anything done in those meetings. So yeah, it does get frustrating when you know that somebody is unlikely to share your point of view. But even if you move the needle on your point of view with that member of the legislature, a point or two, that matters. That conversation mattered in that case.
What's different for you in your experience, coming from a world where you were a leading advocate for the equality NC, you step down, you become a legislator, now you're on the other side of that fence. Did you get what you expected in the experience, or have you learned some things that might affect you when you go back into that side of the world if you choose to?
So this is important to know. I'm still the executive director of Equality North Carolina. I'm not a lobbyist.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think that this has been a learning experience for me. I'm sure it's a learning experience for everybody who's a member of the legislature to be part of a collegial body. I want to respect other members of the legislature. I think they want to respect me. And so I think that what I've learned is that everybody here is human. And again, everybody is really open to working across the aisle, which is part of the reason that I really believe that we can repeal House Bill 2, because I think that personal conversations matter. I think that's why it matters for me to be here as a member of the LGBT community, as the only member of the LGBT community represented at this building. So I do think that there are learned lessons that I'll take back in January when I'm not here anymore. To make sure that I can help lead the LGBT community even better.
Representative Chris Sgro, Democrat for Guilford County for now.
Yes.
Got a big campaign ahead, a variety of fronts. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for your state service as an appointee. It's a busy job, and we'll have you on again soon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.